Hey guys, how y'all doing today? Mighty Lighty here with another PC video. Today we are taking a look at Gigabyte's low profile variant of the 1050 Ti. I bought this for about $160 off Amazon as an upgrade from my Dell Optiplex 990 small form factor. As you can see, this little guy has quite a few outputs for such a small card, with a DisplayPort, 2 HDMI, and a DVI output. Also in this box, we have the low profile bracket included, which we'll need. Along with a quick start guide. And of course, the driver's disc. I'd like to get the most out of my Dell, and in addition, I'd like to see how much of an improvement this will be from the stock AMD card, so I ran a benchmark prior to this installation. Before I install this GPU into my system, I need to swap this standard profile bracket with the low profile variant. This is pretty straightforward and it only takes a couple minutes, so of course it took me just twice as long as it should have. Now that the graphics card is ready to be installed, I'll remove my old GPU. You can tell just by looking at the two the difference in performance. This AMD card has only about 500 megabytes of VRAM, while our 1050 Ti on the other hand has 4 gigabytes. Next, let's install the new card, along with its drivers and Gigabyte's OS software. And with the graphics card in and the drivers installed, everything is good to go. Yeah, right. It turns out, what I had heard about the 240 watt power supply supposedly being enough for this sort of thing wasn't necessarily true. As soon as the GPU demanded too much power, my computer crashed, which is exactly what happened when I attempted to benchmark it. Granted, I guess that was still kinda my fault for trying to boost the clock speed a little bit, but it hadn't occurred to me at the time that I probably shouldn't do that with such a small power margin. So since we want to make this thing a little reliable beast, we're gonna need a bigger power supply. Unfortunately, I don't just mean one with a greater wattage, but also size, as Dell doesn't have a more powerful one of the same form factor that I could find. This is also a problem, however, because our case is only so big and only fits the 240 watt PSU form factor. I had ordered the 420 watt PSU supposedly made for the Dell small form factor by a third-party company off of Amazon. When I received it, I quickly realized that this wasn't the same form factor and that this was probably for some of Dell's slim models instead, but I tried to see if I could get it to fit anyways, but of course it didn't. So instead, I initially decided I would 3M it to the bottom of the case, which honestly would have probably worked out fine, but it was ugly, not space efficient, and I was a little concerned that due to it not being grounded, it might cause some problems as a 3M would likely insulate it from the case. I wasn't sure if this was a problem though. However, in addition, it meant that the CPU power cable would be pulled taut.
Absolutely flawless. There's no problem here whatsoever.
In fact, the only reason I could find to keep it on the outside of the case was so I could put the old one back inside to power the CD-ROM, because it had a proprietary power cable only present on the 240 watt power supply, though this was neither necessary or by any means power efficient. But honestly, is anything about this? So although this was a good idea in theory, I decided I would be persistent and attempt to cram it inside. And cram it inside I tried. I began by trying to save some thermal paste by taking off the CPU fan and leaving the heatsink intact. I then proceeded to remove the motherboard screws. However, even after removing all the screws, I still couldn't remove the motherboard to my surprise. So I then proceeded to remove the heatsink and even the securing mechanism to no avail. I was totally stumped until I realized that it was unobservant and I hadn't noticed that the standoff for the hard drive screws directly into the motherboard tray. So with a good chunk of time wasted and my efforts to preserve a little bit of thermal paste foiled, I removed the motherboard and attempted to fit the new power supply in. This is when I came to the conclusion that it wasn't going to be that easy. I tried seeing how the motherboard and GPU would fit with it. And I soon realized I needed to do something about the metal base that rises about 1/8 of an inch from the case for securing the old power supply. Of course, with no appropriate tools, I mutilated it with a drill, a hammer, and a screwdriver in an attempt to annihilate the obstruction. And now that there was no turning back, I had to make this thing fit. I managed to force the PSU into place and fit the motherboard back into the case. Of course, only after much mutilation and effort. I then made sure the GPU would fit alongside the PSU. However, it occurred to me that the power inlet on the PSU wasn't even aligned with the rear of the case. I solved this simply by forcefully jamming the PSU forwards until I could fit the cable into the inlet. You know, as any rational PC modder would do. And of course, as I unnecessarily removed the CPU, it's time to put it back in. Apply some thermal paste, and slap the heatsink and fan back on. I began plugging everything back in, but I realized that the wad of cables do obstruct a lot of airflow. Unfortunately, I can't do much about this. I tried tucking the wad in tighter, but it was just a futile effort. Whew. Finally, I have survived the nightmare that is the Verge PC build's younger cousin, and I have come to terms with my mistakes. We can make peace with what has been done and move forward with progress. I finished plugging in the cables and tucking them away before installing the hard drive. Simply hear the music. We have finally reached the inspirational vibe after achieving the impossible. Time for the final stretch. Just gotta take this pointless Dell GPU bracket thing and shove it in along with our new 1050 Ti. Yes, look at me adapt and overcome.
This has been quite the adventure.
Yes, it has been an adventure.
It's time to see if it works.
Of course it will. What could possibly stop us?
No, this won't fit right.
Come on, bro, slap that lid on.
But we can
Oh wait, what's happening? What did you do? Oh, you just forgot to plug in the power switch, you big brain. Man, I'm so sorry past me, but you're gonna hate yourself a few months in the future when you're editing this at 1 AM when you're trying to fix your sleep schedule for work. Alright, so let's check out how my current gaming PC fares just to get an idea of a decent rig. This thing is a bit of a beast with over 100% ratings in 2 out of the 3 categories thanks to its i5-9600K and a 2070 no doubt. Speaking of our GPU, we get a GPU score of 110%, though I have much lower expectations for our previously feeble Dell. Now let's take a peek at the humble beginnings of our now overpowered Xbox running Windows. Oh yikes, that's looking a little laggy. I'd say that I think we're dropping just a couple frames. And our results? are absolutely... What the heck was that? Terrible is what I was going to say. We have 12% in gaming, 51% in desktop, and 30% in workstation. More importantly, our GPU score is only 0.9%. It's a miracle this PC even rendered the website.
Terrible.
Alright, now we are taking a look at the Dell with the 1050 Ti upgrade. And already you can see the improvement. Granted, we have 8 times the VRAM capacity. And would you look at that, my little boy has evolved into a sailboat. Although, just between you and I, gotta be honest, this was a little disappointing to see. I expected a little more of a performance boost, but I can't really complain. We have achieved 32% in the gaming category, 50% in the desktop, and 31% in workstation. However, right now the only thing that we should care about is the GPU. And if we look, we see we have achieved a whopping 31%. Wow, amazing. Well, relatively speaking, this is a huge difference from the not even 1% we came from. By the way, I'm not completely sure how all this works, but I believe 100% is represented by the average of RTX 2060 scores. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so the RTX 2060 is the baseline, so a 31% score can't be all that bad. Should be perfectly capable of running games in HD at 60 frames per second, and even running multiple monitors as well.
Cool claw yellow, but I don't think so, because like this is a huge upgrade for the graphics card. I mean, the graphics card was really different, but like, I don't know, like 1050 Ti is...
As always, thank you guys for watching, and feel free to leave a comment with any feedback or questions. If you guys are potentially looking forward to more, stay tuned for the installation of my new CPU for this computer. See you guys in the next one. Look, I know you enjoyed that flawless video, but it's over. You can leave now if you want. Or stay. It's up to you.